And with that in mind, I invite you to hear the words of 2 Kings 18. In the 3rd year of Hoshea, son of Eleb, king of Israel, Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Abijah, daughter of Zechariah. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father David had done. He removed the high places, smashed the sacred stones, and cut down the Asherah poles. He broke into pieces the bronze snake Moses had made, for up to that time the Israelites had been burning incense to it. It was called Nehushtan. Hezekiah trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel. There was no one like him among all the kings of Judah, either before him or after him. He held fast to the Lord and did not cease to follow him. He kept the commands the Lord had given Moses, and the Lord was with him. He was successful in whatever he undertook. He rebelled against the king of Assyria and did not serve him. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You may be seated. Time is moving along in the story of the people of Israel. Time's moving along and things are changing. And perhaps the most significant change that's happening at this point is that God has begun downsizing a bit. And the effect of that has happened upon Israel, the northern kingdom. They have become the victim now. You see, the people were going after their own ideas, their own interests, their own concerns. And with all the kings that had come and gone, God's people just were not coming back. With all the kings that had come and gone, the only good kings were found in the southern kingdom. Up in the north, where the 10 tribes were, there was bad king after bad king. And what makes a king bad or good? Are they bringing people back to the Lord or leading them in the opposite direction? This covenant-making God, this promise-making God was downsizing. The promise would come through the tribe of Judah. And while he couldn't bring all the people back, much as he tried, he took this faithful remnant and kept them close. How did this happen? Well, Israel in the north had chosen the wrong ally. In fact, for a period of time, they allied themselves with 2 different nations, with both Egypt and Assyria. When Assyria found out, they weren't happy at Israel's divided loyalties. I think we can understand that. And so Assyria attacked the northern kingdom and took the people away. The rebellion was so great that the Lord is now narrowing his focus on the southern kingdom of Judah. Judah also made an alliance, but theirs was not with a nation on earth. Their alliance was with the Lord. And one of the miracles, one of the wonderful situations that occurred because Judah, the southern kingdom, decided to ally themselves with the Lord is that they didn't have to fight the Assyrians. No, before they could even go into battle, the Lord defeated the Assyrians. They woke up one morning and the army was found dead. The Lord protected the southern kingdom of Judah. And though small, though a remnant of the 12 tribes is all that was left, it would be sufficient for the Lord to fulfill his covenant. You see, The problem here was not the lack of worship. The Israelites in both the north and the south were worshiping all the time. They did not have to worry about turning to the right or to the left to find an altar to worship at, for the altars were all around. The only problem is that all the altars that were around were to pagan gods. They were not altars for the Lord. The problem was not their lack of worship, but the object or the focus of their worship. And then Hezekiah came into their midst. One of the 5 good kings, one of the 5 who would speak to the people about turning back to the Lord. He did, we're told in 2 Kings, he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. And how do we know that? What did he do to please the Lord? He removed the high places. He smashed the sacred stones, and he cut down the Asherah poles. He removed the evidence, the focus of pagan worship from among the people. But as far as I'm concerned, that's not the most amazing thing that he did. The most amazing and perhaps the most concerning thing to me that illustrates how far Israel had traveled away from the Lord, how far the people of Judah had traveled away from the Lord, is the next thing that he did. He broke into pieces the bronze snake Moses had made. Do you remember the snake? Remember that bronze snake that Moses had made? The people were being rebellious. And so the Lord sent serpents to bite at their heels, and when they were bitten, they died. And the Israelites repented. They said, Moses, do something, change our situation. So Moses prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said, all right, Moses, make a serpent out of bronze and put it on the top of a pole, and whenever the people look at it, they won't die. They'll still be bitten, but they won't die. The purpose of the bronze snake was so that the people would remember the Lord, so that their hearts would be brought back to the Lord. And now, they were offering sacrifices. They were burning incense to the serpent. The very object that has been created to draw people's attention to the Lord was now being worshipped for the object that it was and not for the one whom it represented. So Moses had to even destroy the bronze serpent so that the hearts of the people could come back to the Lord. It brings me to the point of asking, what objects of worship do we need to cut down, smash, or clean out of our own lives? It's a spirit of confession, I'll admit. But what objects of worship do we need to cut down, smash, or clean out of our own lives so that our walk with the Lord can be that much closer? We need to choose the object of our worship. You see, our worship is never ending. The only question is, what or who are we worshiping? Our attention, our energy, our passions are directed in many different directions. But do they lead us to the Lord? You see, for some of us, that worship is directed toward temporary material objects in the world. For some of us, it may be earthly relationships that take so much of our time that our attention is drawn away from the Lord. Will we choose the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, to be the one whom we will worship? Will we recognize that he is the one who never gave up on his people? Even though we're now down to the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, the Lord has not given up on his people. How do I know this? Because in Isaiah chapter 7, yes, I'll admit it, God had a plan, not a 5-year plan, not a 10-year plan, but a 700 plus year plan. Ever made one of those? But that's how our God works. Planning more than 700 years in the future. He says to the prophet Isaiah, "Hear now, you house of David, is it not enough to try the patience of humans? Will you try the patience of my God also? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign of his plan. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel," which means God with us. That's God's plan. Never to leave us. He will never abandon us. Isaiah continues to tell us about this one who would be called Emmanuel. For the people walking in darkness, and the people of Judah would continue to be walking in darkness. For the people walking in darkness will see a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has shined. Isaiah 9, for to us a child is born. A son is given. You see God's plan coming to fruition? And who is he going to be? The wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. What more could the people want? What more could we want? It's the completeness of what we need. One who will counsel with mercy, one who has the power of a mighty God, one who has the compassion of an everlasting Father, and who brings peace into troubled lives. What's more, Isaiah continues, and we know it in chapter 53. This one who would come, this child who would be born, Emmanuel, this son that is given, he would grow up. Before him a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him. There was nothing about his outward appearance that would compel us to be in relationship with him. There was nothing in his appearance that we would desire him. He was in fact despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised. We held him of low esteem. But he took our pain, he bore our suffering, and we considered that God was punishing him, had stricken him and afflicted him. This is the one who was pierced for our transgressions, who was crushed for the things we had done. The punishment that brought us peace was the punishment that he received instead of us. And by his wounds, we are healed. We, like sheep, have gone astray. Each one of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the wrong that we have done. God's plan came to fulfillment on Calvary, in a tomb, and ultimately at the resurrection, when he would be known as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Now, how does this come home? How does this touch us? I was amazed to find in one account of history that in early America, before America, there were these committees of correspondence among the colonies. How is it that the people from different colonies kind of coordinated their beliefs and their practice in the work that they were doing? There were these committees of correspondence, and some were arranged by the committee, by the colonies themselves, by the leadership in the colonies. Some were arranged by different organizations, like the Sons of Liberty formed a committee of correspondence so that they could keep in touch with one another and let each other know what they were doing and what was important. And again, one account of history that I read said that George Washington was offered the opportunity to be the first king in the New World. And that he turned it down because one of the tenets of the Committees of Correspondence, one of the tenets was no king but King Jesus. So there would be no earthly king. He became elected, not appointed, but elected as president. Because early in our nation's history, it was important that there be no king except King Jesus. And is that not what brings us here today? That he is Lord of our lives, King of kings and Lord of lords? Is that not the basis of our faith? And you've heard me say, and it won't be the last time, that what happens in worship shouldn't stay in worship. We need to proclaim to the world, to the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, that he is King of kings and Lord of lords, not proclaiming it in a whisper, but shouting aloud to the north and south and east and west. Let us stand together and proclaim in full voice that there is no king but King Jesus.